So I believe we are now live.
Yes. Hello to those who are joining. We are going to give people a little bit of time to join the meeting, and we will start probably right at about 4:31 p.m. All right, welcome to those who have joined. My name is Joe Twort. I am Associate Director for Professional Practice in our Office of Professional Practice. Welcome to the first of a three-part series as we lead up to the employer recruitment season at Purdue. We were putting together some webinars with our partner ZF to discuss pertinent things to help students prepare for this time. Today's session is on resume writing. As I said, this is presented by the Office of Professional Practice. Office of Professional Practice is the office that oversees Purdue's cooperative education program. The co-op program is the opportunity that allows students to gain the most work experience while at Purdue. Students in that program will have a minimum of 3 work sessions or a maximum of 5 work sessions, gaining anywhere between 12 and 20 months of professional experience prior to graduation. Students can earn anywhere between $50,000 and $80,000, potentially more than that, through the co-op program. So it's a very good way for students to start their careers early. Additionally, our office runs the GEAR program. So that is our global engineering training program, where students have the opportunity to study abroad, to study foreign languages, and have work experiences both in the US and overseas. ZF is a partner of our Office of Professional Practice, hiring many students for co-op experiences, as well as the GEAR program, having placed students in the US and in Germany, and we hope soon additional places around the world as well. ZF's a global technology company based in Germany with facilities all around the world, including here in Lafayette, Indiana. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Mackenzie Ryan, who's in talent acquisition for ZF, and I'll let her take over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the intro, Joe. As he just mentioned to the group, I am a recruiter for ZF, and I've been with the company since January of 2019. And I am part of what we refer to as a global recruiting center for the company. So that is a group of recruiters for a particular region, and we are responsible for filling our openings at all of our production, technical center, and service locations throughout North America and South America. So specifically, we are considered the Global Recruiting Center Americas because of that. In my focus areas, since I started, have primarily been filling positions for our active safety systems division. So I deal a lot with our braking product line, and I fill a lot of positions out of our plant location in Fayette, Ohio. The most of my time is probably spent filling positions for our commercial vehicle steering systems product line that is actually headquartered out of Lafayette, Indiana. So over in Lafayette, we do have an engineering center right next door to a full manufacturing plant. And then I do also support that product line through our plant in Lebanon, Tennessee. And then I've also been starting to fill more positions in our related to information technology, or IT, for various ZF locations. So just to give an idea for those that don't know much about ZF, as Joe mentioned, we are a global tier 1 automotive supplier. So that means that we supply systems and components directly to OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers. So I'm actually, again, being based in Michigan, the OEMs that I hear the most about are, FCA, GM, Ford. Those are what we refer to as the big three here in the Metro Detroit area. But again, we do, as a global tier 1 supplier, we do support OEMs around the world. So specifically in the North American region, again, we do have production plants, we have technical centers, we have service locations throughout North America and South America. Still, probably the majority of our employees still do come out of Europe. So at the end of 2019, we had almost 90,000 employees just from Europe. And then next, the majority of our employees come from the North American region. So at the end of 2019, we had almost 35,000 employees. Just to give a quick idea too, in terms of our size, we are a German-owned company. And we actually acquired an American tier 1 automotive supplier called TRW back in 2015. So with two global companies, coming together and converging, that definitely increased the ZF or ZF footprint here in North America. So we have over 240 locations in 41 countries. Again, a lot of those locations are production locations. We also have a lot of technical center locations where we do focus a lot on our research and development, and we do have a lot of service locations throughout. If anybody's ever going to be applying to a position at ZF, you're going to apply through our website, through our online portal. You'll have to complete, a brief web application, and then you would have the chance to upload your resume and your cover letter. And so when you apply for a particular position, that position is going to be assigned to a particular global recruiting center. So for example, any positions that you're going to be applying to here in the US, that would go to my team based in Livonia, Michigan. And again, I specifically support certain locations. So if you apply to, a particular position here in the US, if it doesn't go to me, then it would go to one of my recruiting partners in the Global Recruiting Center. But just to give an idea, if you do decide to apply to positions outside of the US, we do have these global recruiting hubs in various regions. So we do have one based in Western Europe, one in Eastern Europe, one in the Asia Pacific region, and then one in India as well. Another thing I always just like to point out is that most people, when they hear ZF or ZF, they will think passenger vehicles. And that's definitely the largest market for us, but we do also provide systems and components for commercial vehicles. Again, what's unique for Purdue is that our commercial vehicle headquarters just happens to be our location in Lafayette. So again, very, very close to the Purdue campus. And then another market that we are starting to tap into a little bit more would be industrial applications. So you can see the picture of the tractor there. But again, still primarily known for passenger vehicles, but just always like to point out the other markets that we are in as well. And then these would be, I just like to point out, these are kind of the 4 areas, technology areas that ZF is really putting all of our research and development and time and resources into. So those areas would be vehicle motion control, integrated safety, automated driving, and electric mobility. And then this last slide just kind of shows you a nice overview of all of the systems and components that we are responsible for making for our customers. So anything from occupant safety systems, chassis components, steering systems, transmission systems, braking systems. And then you can see how all of those systems and components kind of fit into the technology domains that we are putting all of our focus into right now. So what I wanted to do today, as a recruiter, I look at a lot of resumes every single day. And so I just wanted to share, quick tips with the group today, and just kind of recommendations of, what to do and what not to do when, applying for a co-op or internship position or a full-time position. So just kind of wanted to start with the basic purpose of a resume. At the end of the day, a resume is meant to effectively summarize your education, your employment history, and your skills and experience relevant to a particular job in order to secure an interview. So, the resume of a first-year engineering student is definitely going to look a little bit different than, a soon-to-be or recent engineering graduate. So to give you an idea, and I should also preface too, a lot of what I recruit is engineering skill sets, but a lot of what I'll be sharing in the webinar today, you can apply to other skill sets as well. So although I reference engineering a lot, please note that a lot of this, again, would cross over to other skill sets. But again, for a first-year engineering student, that's applying to an internship, applying to a co-op, we as an employer, we are looking for students who've gotten involved with extracurricular activities, whether those are activities that are offered by Purdue, activities that are offered, by the Lafayette, West Lafayette communities. So whether that's being part of Formula, SAE, Grand Prix, EPICS. There's so many great groups and activities that you can be a part of during your college years. And so we're looking to see that. Now, the caveat is, being a brand new, a freshman engineer, you may not have had time yet to get involved in any activities or join any groups. And we completely understand that. So that's why we're looking for you to include on your resume what you have done in the past that's engineering related. Maybe you were part of your first robotics team in high school, or maybe you just have a passion for tinkering with cars. We want to hear about that because what that shows us is that you have an inquisitive mind. You already have that engineering mindset that you're developing. And anytime you can, relay that information to us and convey it in a way that shows your excitement and your passion for it, that desire to search for answers and continue to learn in the field of engineering, that's ultimately what we're looking for. So go ahead and put that stuff on your resume. And another thing I would just point out is be prepared. If you do have the opportunity to talk to a recruiter or talk to a company employee at a career event, be prepared for them to ask you, tell us what you would like to do or what you are planning to do, while you're here at Purdue or while you're here in the Lafayette area. What kind of engineering related activities would you like to be a part of? Would you like to get into? So again, even if you haven't had a chance quite yet, we're going to want to know from you, what have you looked into? Where do you think you would like to invest your time while you're here in school? Now, I know the resume for a soon-to-be graduate or recent graduate is going to be a little bit more built out. So in that sense, again, as an employer, we're really looking for those students that were involved in the extracurricular activities or, groups that I just mentioned. Another thing that we're really going to be looking at is the type of professional experience that you've had thus far and how relevant that is to the position that you're applying for. So for example, for an engineering skill set, first thing we're going to be looking for is, were you involved in any kind of co-op rotational programs? Were you involved in any kind of internships during your time at school? These are very, very important. So I always recommend to keep these experiences under, whatever you want to title the category, whether it's relevant experience or professional experience, to make sure that that is towards the 2/3 top of your resume, because that is so important. Another thing too for, soon-to-be graduate and, somebody that's just graduated, you can really utilize the cover letter and then the objective portion of your resume to highlight how your career goals align with the open position. So, the more specific you are in detailing your experience, the easier it is for me as the recruiter or the employer to see how your experience corroborates your interests. So again, being entry level, just joining industry, you may not have a ton of experience yet, but the experience that you do have, really make sure to convey that on your resume and in your cover letter, and be able to provide really specific examples of how you possess, certain skills, certain qualities, especially those skills and qualities that are called for in a job description as well. Another thing I always like to point out as well, for a more entry-level candidate, oftentimes I will see candidates will apply for multiple, positions within the company, which is understandable, especially as you're just getting into the industry. I would just highly, highly recommend that anytime you are applying for, multiple positions within the same company, really make sure that you are making sure that your cover letter and your resume is specific to the position that you're applying to. Because what can happen is, as a recruiter, if I see somebody's applied to multiple positions and I notice that they've used the same resume, the same cover letter each time, I perceive that as maybe this person doesn't have a very good understanding yet of where their interests really lie and what they really want to do. However, if they're really able to show me for each position that they've applied to, they've made sure that their resume, that their cover letter, everything is specifically targeted to that position, then I'm going to be much more interested in pursuing that candidate further, because they've clearly been able to define for me what their interests are and why they think they would be a good fit for this particular position.
Mackenzie,
Yeah.
quick question, and for everybody on here, if you do have a question, go ahead and feel free to enter that into the Q&A function. We can answer some of those live as we go. We'll probably cover most at the end. But the question we have is, if we have some first-year extracurriculars, should we also still include maybe our engineering-related hobbies? What are your thoughts on that? Things that they might have done in high school?
Yes, definitely. I've had the pleasure of being a part of a lot of different career events at Purdue over the years. And honestly, when I talk to my managers afterwards, I can't tell you how many times the managers are most impressed by just hearing a lot of what these students did in high school or even growing up. Students that are able to say that they were starting tinkering around with cars when they were like 12 years old. So yeah, I think that it's definitely really important. If you have been invested in engineering related activities from a young age, or even just from high school, definitely highlight those on your resume. Definitely be prepared to talk about those in situations where you are, for example, at a career event, whether you're in person or you're doing it virtually. And then of course, if you already have had the time to join some extracurriculars, at Purdue, definitely put those on there too. But we're definitely expecting for, a first year engineering student, we're definitely expecting to see, them put on stuff from high school or from at home or extracurricular activities. So yeah, I would say that's totally fine. But as long as it's engineering related, it's related to, the skill set or the position that you're going after.
Mm-hmm. And Mackenzie, what about those things that they maybe are important volunteer things that they did in high school that are maybe non-engineering related? I mean, what types of things might be worthwhile in terms of sharing?
Yeah, so, I'm always interested to see any type of activities or groups where you had to work in a team. That always speaks volumes to, your communication, style. How did you work in a team? Did you find that you were really effective in a team? Did you find you were more effective working by yourself? And that really parallels a lot with what you're going to experience in a co-op program or in an internship program. When you're joining a company, you're going to be put into a team environment, and so you're going to have to learn really quickly how to do, definitely work autonomously, but at the same time be really working with your mentors, with the other engineers on the team, whoever it may be. So I'm always interested to see any kind of environments where you would have been part of a team in high school or outside of high school. That would be a big one for me. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be engineering related, but if you are going to be applying specifically for an internship or a co-op that is an engineering related internship or co-op, definitely include any activity that was engineering related. But then also we're interested again to see those activities where maybe you were part of a team, or maybe any type of leadership roles. Maybe you were a mentor to another student while you were in high school, or you were part of an extracurricular group where you got to kind of be in a leadership position. Again, that's also something that we're always really interested to see. Oftentimes in a leadership position, you do have to deal with conflict, or you have to deal with obstacles and figure out kind of what the best course of action is and how to steer the other members of your team. So again, any kind of experience like that, I think, is always something that we're looking out for as well. Perfect. Were there any other questions, Joe, that I should answer right now? Perfect. So again, we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but just to drive it home, again, we are always interested in students that have, gained some professional experience while in school, whether that was a co-op, whether that was an internship, or some kind of extracurricular group like SAE, whatever that may be. And the reason being is because it shows us, the employer, that you've really used your time to assess what it is that you want to do, or at the very least, what you don't want to do. So, when you're just starting out, you may not know. You may know, I'm interested in engineering. I feel like I have that engineering mindset. I don't even know which discipline I would want to focus on. Do I want to go electrical? Do I want to go mechanical? Am I interested in software and controls? And that's okay. You don't have to know right off the bat. And that's where something like a co-op or an internship can be really integral to your development, and just in helping you kind of assess what it is, where your interests lie. It's also really great for you to kind of also get a feel for the type of environment you like working in. Do you like working in more of a corporate, technical center type environment? Maybe you like being in a really fast-paced production plant type of environment. You don't really know until you get to be part of these programs or activities that actually allow you to explore different work areas. Another thing too is, again, how do you work? Oftentimes in college and even in high school, you do have a lot of assignments where you have to work in a team. And that's going to pretty much carry through the rest of college and into your professional work life. And so that's where you can also kind of really hone in on, how do I like working? Do I find that I really prefer to kind of work on my own? Do I like to be working in a team? When I'm in a team, do I have a tendency to gravitate towards that leadership role on the team? Or do I like to kind of like sit back? Definitely, I'm a team player, but I don't necessarily want to take on the leadership role. You have a chance to really kind of find out all of those things about yourself when you are involved in these type of activities. Another thing I'd like to point out too is that sometimes, you get to the end of college and maybe you didn't have a chance to do internships. Maybe you didn't have a chance to do any rotational co-ops, and that is okay. Sometimes that happens, and maybe you get to the point of graduating and you still don't really know what it is that you wanted to do. I always like to say, that is okay. But I do want to preface that you also just have to be aware that it's definitely a competitive market. So when it does come time to, applying for positions, if you're still kind of don't really know if you're interested in this position or not, just bear in mind that you are probably going to be applying with other candidates that are really sure that this is the direction that they want to go in. They were able to do a lot of co-ops or internships that really kind of helped them figure it out, what they wanted to do, what they didn't want to do. They have that relevant experience that can kind of corroborate their interests. So in those cases, you just have to really make sure that when it comes time to apply, that if you don't necessarily have a ton of experience, or if you don't have a lot of experience that's relevant, that you really are spending time on that cover letter, that you're making sure to include an objective category on your resume where you can really express and convey what your interests are, how those align with the open position in that company, in that industry. You may have to just do a little bit more just because, again, you may not have that experience that can kind of corroborate that. So the purpose of a cover letter, again, when it comes time to be applying for positions, some employers will actually request that you upload both a cover letter and a resume. Some, employers may just require a resume. I always highly encourage an entry-level candidate to apply with both a cover letter and a resume. And that is because, again, as entry-level, you may have gained some great experience while in school, but still you're just getting into industry. So you still have a lot more to experience and to learn. And so for that reason, that's where you can really use the cover letter to paint a picture for the recruiter, for the employer about, what, and give really specific examples about what you did, and have those examples demonstrate the skills and experience that you possess. And especially if you have examples that demonstrate the skills and experience that meet the job description requirements, at the end of the day, that's always going to be what you want to focus the most on. So when creating a cover letter, quick tips. Again, it should just be about 1 page. Now, for certain academic positions or programs, you may be able to go beyond 1 page, but for the majority of the positions I deal with, I'm just looking for 1 page, anywhere from 3 to 5 paragraphs. Again, I don't want anything generic. I want this to be unique to you, unique to your experience, and then I want you to be able to show me how your experience really relates to the position and why you would be a really good match. Proofread, have other people look at it, provide suggestions or recommendations, spell check often. And of course, similar to a resume, always type your cover letter. Sometimes I do receive written cover letters that are uploaded through our portal. So please, again, always type a cover letter like you would a resume. And another thing I'll point out too is that the cover letter stage is also a really great time for you to research the company's values, research the company's identity, learn more about the overall industry that this company is a part of and how they're impacting the industry. Knowing this information can really help you better convey how your interests and experience are a good match for them. So again, just a great time for you to learn more about that company and really show that employer, why you are the right person for the job. Quick tips just for resume formatting, for margins, no more than 1 inch at the top, the sides and the bottom, anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch. For font, anywhere between 10 to 12, font size, point size will be just fine. You don't want to go too small, and at the same time, you don't want to go too large. So always a good idea, because oftentimes what you see on your laptop screen or your desktop screen will look different once you print it out. So I always recommend that after you complete a resume, make sure to print it out and also look through that, proofread it, spell check. We always recommend using simple readable fonts. So probably what I get the most would be, Tahoma, Calibri, Times New Roman, Arial. That's probably the most common fonts that I get. The overall length of a resume, again, just for for a current student or for an entry-level candidate, 1 page. If you're at the graduate level, PhD level, if it, certain skill sets, you can get away with the 2 pages, but really looking for 1 page. The other reason too is, being able to, when you can present a 1-page resume, that's also showing to me that you were able to effectively summarize all of your skills and experience. Because I do have candidates often that they were involved in so many different groups and clubs, and they had so many great internship experiences, and they've got a lot of information that they want to share. So that's when I really kind of challenge them of now how best can they summarize all of that experience and really make sure that they can do it in a succinct, concise way to keep it down to 1 page. To do that, we do recommend bullet points. That's a great way of how you can kind of summarize your experience. 2 to 5 bullet points at most per experience is what we recommend. And just like the cover letter, I would recommend steering away from resume templates. You can use a template as a reference point, but at the end of the day, you just really want to make sure your resume and your cover letter are very unique to your own skills and experiences. So I wanted to go over resume order. So typically what would come first would be the heading, right? This is where you list your name, your address. The address is optional. For a student, sometimes I see the address, sometimes I don't. I usually recommend, though, if you are applying for a full-time position, that you do put your address on the resume, your phone, your email. Today, most people also will list their LinkedIn URL. If you do that, just make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date and that there's no discrepancies, between what you're showing on your LinkedIn profile as opposed to what you're showing on your resume or detailing in your cover letter. And please make sure that you do have a professional profile picture on your LinkedIn. That again is also really, really key. So again, you don't have to include the URL, but if you do, you just want to make sure that your LinkedIn is all up to date, because usually if I see that URL, that is something that I'm going to want to take a look at for those reasons. The objective, I get asked a lot, is this something I should have on my resume? Is this something that I shouldn't have? It's true, many people do argue that, it's a feature of the past. However, I really feel that for a student or for a recent graduate, that's applying to an entry-level position, it can be very effective, because this is how you can indicate in just 1 to 2 sentences how your career goals align with the open position. Because sometimes I may not be able to tell. Maybe you haven't had a ton of experience yet. I kind of need you to tell me, why this would be a good fit for you and why you would be a good fit for us. So ultimately, if you're going to, you don't have to put an objective in your resume, but if you are, again, keep it short and to the point, 1 to 2 sentences. It's going to be talking about your professional goals and kind of explaining why you're seeking employment. Again, use it as an opportunity to convey what you're interested in. And at the end of the day, really do still make sure that it is relevant to the position that you're applying for. That is something that happens quite often, is that somebody will apply for a position and their objective will have nothing to do with the position that they've just applied for. So I don't know if it was a mistake that they just forgot to update it or what happened, but immediately in my mind, I perceive that, oh, this person obviously is not really interested in this position, or was this a mistake? So again, just really make sure that you're catering that resume to that position that you're applying for. Make sure the objective is relevant. Some examples that I wanted to give, for like a recent graduate. It could be recent college graduate with a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering and 1 year of internship experience in an engineering technical center environment, seeking mechanical engineer position that is related to product development with exposure to CAD. That tells me so much in just 2 sentences. I'm saying, okay, great, you have your bachelor's of science. That's already, a minimum requirement for this position. You've had a full year of internship experience. You were able to do it in a technical center environment. That happens to be the environment that this position is in, so that's going to be very relevant. You're seeking something related to product development. That's a lot about what this position is that they just applied for. So that shows me, yep, that's their interest, and it definitely aligns with this position. And they're looking for an exposure to CAD. That is a huge part of this position. So right there, that's just showing to me this person has come right out the gate. They've told me what their interests are, how those interests align to the open position. They've explained to me why they're looking. They're a recent graduate looking to get in the industry. I've just been able to gain so much in just 2 sentences. And then if they attached a cover letter to go along with that, then hopefully they've included a lot of specific examples in that cover letter, demonstrating how they possess, the skills and the experience that is being called for in the job description. Another thing I'll point out too, what can be really helpful for students that are applying for co-ops or internships, it can be helpful to have an objective where you would just simply state that you are seeking an internship or you're seeking a co-op opportunity in the field of mechanical engineering or software engineering or whatever it may be, and then beginning, summer of 2021 or whenever you're looking. Oftentimes that's, when I go to career events and a student approaches me, that's one of the first kind of questions is, what's your background? Mechanical engineering? Okay, great. Are you interested in a co-op or an internship? Great. And then we kind of build from there. So it is always helpful to also kind of see that. So if I do get back home and I forget, oh, I can't remember, what were they looking for? It is kind of nice to see, oh yes, they were looking for a 3-session co-op, or they were looking for a 5-session co-op, or whatever it may be. So that can also just be very effective for students. So after you go through your heading, your objective, again, objective is optional, but again, I do highly encourage it. Then you would go to the education portion. This is where you're listing, the name and location of your institution, the date of your graduation. It's always really helpful for students that are applying to internships or co-ops that they list the date of their expected graduation. And the reason being is because we kind of have to figure out, what level are you at right now? You're interested in a 5-session co-op. Well, that's going to be rotating. Do we have enough time for you to do that before you graduate? That's where it can be very helpful for you to let us know what your expected graduation date is. We're going to be looking for, obviously, to see your degree type, your major, if you have a minor, of course, you could put that on there as well. GPA, that is, that's going to be optional. That kind of just depends on the skill set. And then, of course, relevant coursework. I just did want to point out for, specifically for engineering students that are applying to co-ops or internships, most companies are going to be looking for you to put your GPA on your resume. At ZF, we do expect students to list their GPA on their resume because we require a minimum 3.0 GPA for acceptance into our student co-op or internship program. In my experience, if a GPA was not included on a resume, it was usually because it was below a 3.0. If that is the case for you, if your GPA is below, I think it's fine. You don't have to put it on your resume. By not doing that, you do have to be prepared that you may not get as many calls as somebody who did list the GPA and has a higher GPA. But if you do receive a call from a recruiter or a company employee, or you do have the chance to speak with somebody at an in-person career fair or a virtual career fair, then you can explain why your GPA may be a little bit lower and kind of what the action steps are that you're taking to get your GPA back up. We completely understand there can be extenuating circumstances. There can be a whole number of reasons why maybe your GPA is lower than a 3. And so just know that for engineering, we're always going to have to find out eventually. So we always prefer that you're honest and upfront. But oftentimes, again, if somebody is a little bit lower, they usually come to me and they've already have listed out, the steps that they're taking to make sure that their GPA gets back up. So I always also have a really great appreciation for people that come up to me and are just completely honest, and they let me know what they're doing to get that GPA back up, and that confidence that they still want to push themselves to go through the whole process also really sticks out as well. So I always just like to point that out too. After you go through your education, so again, typically we do the heading, we do the objective, which is optional, we do the education, and then beyond that, I kind of leave it up to the individual on how they want to organize the rest of their resume. 2 things that I'll point out. Number 1, 2/3 of the resume page should be, the top 2/3 of the resume page should be reserved for the skills and experience that are most relevant to the position that you're applying for. As a recruiter, when I'm scanning the resume, I'm just naturally scanning from top to bottom. So again, anything that's going to be the most crucial and relevant to the position at hand, make sure that's going to be towards the top of the resume. It's very helpful to group your experience and skills into categories. So, whether you title that the next category beyond education could be professional experience, it could be relevant experience, related experience. Maybe the next category is class or design projects, because what you did in those classes is the absolute most relevant to this position you're applying for. Whatever it may be, you kind of have to look at the job description. What is the job about? What are the requirements? What is it calling for? Then think back to your own skills that you've acquired, the experiences you've been a part of, and think, what have I done that is most relevant to this position? Maybe everything that I did in my 2 internships, that is the most relevant. So I would want to make sure that that category is going to be, right after education. But again, I leave that up to you as the individual. On the next couple of slides, this kind of just shows you examples, how somebody, ordered their categories. So again, oftentimes you'll see somebody goes right into professional experience, or in this case, this person did, projects and experience. In these situations, one person, relevant experience. So there's just a number of ways that you can title a category, but again, just make sure the most relevant categories should come first in the resume after education. Last couple slides, I just always like to point out, again, you want to keep your resume to 1 page. So how do you do that without having to make your point size, really small? If you've got a lot to say, you really need to take the time to effectively summarize what you've done. So again, stick to 2 to 5 bullet points per experience. Use those bullet points to explain the purpose, the method, and the result of your contributions. Call out specific software or tools that you use to accomplish your tasks. Quantify your results whenever possible, because that will make a much stronger impression. Use active verbs for your resume, to make your resume stand out. You can pretty much go to, just use Google and type in action verbs, type in power verbs, and you can get a long list of verbs. Also in the career handbook that Purdue Center for Career Opportunities put together, you have a couple pages worth of those verbs to look at. Another thing I would say is really pay attention to your tenses, keep them consistent. Past tense verbs for previous experiences and present tense verbs for current experiences. Make sure it's consistent throughout. And don't forget to spell check. I could probably say that until I turned blue in the face. But always, always, always just take that extra second, have a second pair of eyes, look over it, utilize the spell check tool in Microsoft Word or whatever platform that you're using, but really, really make sure you take the time to do that. And one of the last slides I wanted to go over was just to kind of talk about the difference between hard skills and soft skills and how to convey those on your resume. So oftentimes when you go to a company's website, you pull up a position, you're reading through the job description, you're going to get to the category that says either requirements or qualifications. And then you're going to read through those. There's going to be a mix of hard skills and a mix of soft skills that are being called for under that qualifications category. Hard skills, these are teachable skills that are easy to quantify. For example, if you list, computer programming, that's going to be something pretty easy for us to quantify. But soft skills, on the other hand, those are subjective skills. Those are skills that can be harder to quantify. Oftentimes you'll hear people say people skills or interpersonal skills. So more times than not, you'll see listed on a job description, we're looking for somebody that has strong leadership skills. We're looking for someone that has, good teamwork skills, has worked in a teamwork environment, somebody that has strong time management skills, someone that's an effective communicator. You will see these more often than not listed in the qualification section. So then you kind of have to think, well, how do I show the recruiter, how do I show this employer that I possess these skills? Two ways you can do that. Number one, you can include a skills category on your resume. So this would just be, the header might just be technical skills, or maybe just skills where you're going to, in bulleted fashion, list out the skills that you have. Now that is a nice quick way for a recruiter or an employer when they're scanning your resume to identify the skills that you have or that you were, saying that you have. But in today's competitive market, it's really important to note that just merely listing those in bulleted fashion isn't always meaningful enough. It's in your best interest really to share specific examples in your bulleted experience summaries that demonstrate that you possess a particular hard or soft skill. So again, when you're under your experience, professional experience header, and you've listed your first co-op experience, and maybe you have 3 or 4 bullet points under that co-op experience. In those bullet points, that's where we're looking for those, concrete examples that you could give that are showing that, you do have that teamwork experience, or showing that you do have that time management experience, or those skills. Because they're so objective, for you to be able to show me how you possess them by giving concrete examples really sets you apart from other candidates who just, simply listed them in bullet format. So I can't say enough, but the more specific examples that you can give that show how you possess these skills, the more that you're going to stand out among other applicants. So that is just, and then I do get asked, the last thing I'll say too is about the skills category. Where should I include that on my resume? Should that come right up at the top after education? Should I leave that more towards the bottom of the resume? That's where I kind of really say that's when you kind of got to do your homework and look at the job description. Look at the position you're applying for. Is this a co-op position, an internship position? This is a entry-level engineering position. What are they, if they've listed a certain number of hard skills that they're saying are like required, very, very important, then maybe you do want that skills category to be closer to the top of your resume. And then you really want to make sure that you're highlighting in specific examples that you possess those skills. It's also okay if you put it farther down in the resume, but that's where you kind of really have to take a look at the job description, see where the emphasis is being put, what qualifications are required, what qualifications are preferred. At the end of the day, you don't have to meet every single qualification, but we definitely want you to be meeting a majority of at least the basic qualifications. In most companies, how you can tell the difference is they will either say, required or preferred, or they will say like must have or nice to have. They will usually give you some kind of indicator to let you know, well, I have to have this, or I don't have to have it, but this would be nice to have. So that concludes the presentation portion. So I kick it to you, Joe. I don't know if there's been any more questions that have come in along the way.
We have not had any other questions, but if you do have questions, we'll stick around for a few more minutes. If you want to go ahead and ask those questions in the Q&A section, please feel free. I'll also mention that the webinar is being recorded, so we will have a nice video of this tomorrow. We'll link it onto our OPP website, opp.purdue.edu, so we'll have it there. We do have a, oh, will the slides be posted? Yes, they will. So how directly relevant must extracurriculars be? Like, would you put in things like you're in a card game club, or how relevant do you think that they should be in terms of including extracurriculars?
So I guess it also kind of depends a little bit on like the level of the student. Is this like an engineering one, or like a freshman level student? Is this somebody kind of towards the end of their college career, just starting to apply to get into industry? Did they indicate at all?
No. I would.
So I would. Oh yeah. So I personally, I always like to see the extracurriculars. We also just like to see, what excites you. What do you like to invest your time in doing? We don't expect you to every single thing that you do be related to the discipline that you're studying at school. By no means, we do not expect that. We like to see other things that you're interested in, other groups that you like to spend your time with. The only time that really I'll tell students maybe they need to cut it down or take some things out is I do have a lot of students that come to me and they just have a really hard time cutting down their the resume. It's a lengthy 2 pages and they're really struggling to get it to that 1 page. So that's when I might, we kind of have to start to go through and say, okay, what can we keep? What can we do without? If it's we kind of then have to also take a look at what they're applying for at that time. If this is a highly, specific or technical co-op or internship role that's calling for a lot of really specific experience, then maybe we do want to just make sure, at least the 2/3 top of the resume is really focused on all of the experience that you have that is somehow related to what's being called for by those positions. But no, we do like to see a well-rounded person. We like to see somebody that's involved in other activities outside of activities that would be related to their discipline. The only time I'd really say maybe cut it down is if you're just really struggling to kind of keep it to the 1 page. Yeah. And the order too. Again, I will say top 2/3 of the resume, always really reserve the most, relevant skills and experience that you have. So usually if there's additional like leadership opportunities or other extracurriculars that maybe aren't as relevant to the discipline, you can still have those on there, but I would just put those towards the bottom.
Yeah, and the next one about kind of how far to trace back your hobbies. Say you have a hobby that traces back to middle school. Would you put that, or is that generally irrelevant? And I'll say my personal opinion is, as a first year student, you want to have things that are important on that resume. If that hobby that you had in middle school is important to your personality and who you are and who you're going to be as an employee, then potentially that might be something worth notating. But as you get further on in your academics and you have more engineering projects and really relevant stuff that you're doing in college, eventually you want to get rid of sort of that stuff that you had in high school and before. So, Mackenzie, do you have thoughts on that?
No, that I was just gonna say, I 100% agree. I think, yeah, the times where you can really include those kind of things that, like you said, at the beginning of your college career. But yes, just as Joe said, as you really start to build out your resume and get more related and relevant experience, I would definitely be focusing more on that on your resume.
Mm-hmm. For freshman resumes, should we include AP test scores for potentially relevant topics? I guess if you're in the first semester, it could be useful to let us know that you're more advanced in some places, but if you get into the second semester, then maybe it's not. Your thoughts, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. You know, really the only time we're ever really like looking specifically at like test scores or GPA is really only, at least for ZF, is really only when a student is applying for one of our co-ops or internships. And really at that point, we're just strictly looking at the GPA. But I also wanted to point out too, like beyond that, like if you've just graduated or you're about to graduate, you don't have to be listing your GPA. We're really not as focused about that. Really the only time the GPA is ever something that we do just have to make sure that we're aware of is just when we're accepting students into our co-op or internship program.
Yeah, and I'll say one of the things that, of course, if you're a first year student and you're going through the fall recruitment stage, possibly you could get an internship offer. You'll have to really be amazing, but you won't have a GPA from Purdue that you can really list on your resume. And so I would say that probably the freshmen who are seeking jobs have a lot more success during the spring recruitment season, and also a lot more success in trying to apply for co-op positions, because say you apply for a co-op position, most of those companies are hiring students from a beginner's level. If they're looking to hire a freshman, they're looking for you to be long-term engaged with them, potentially work with them five times. And so they're only going to be looking at freshmen for those positions. So that gives you a little bit more advantage in getting into those types of experiences. So it could actually be a little bit easier to look at co-op opportunities than say just straight internship opportunities where you might be competing against sophomores, juniors, and seniors in some cases.
Yes, I 100% agree with you, Joe. It's very advantageous at the freshman level for you to really be looking into co-op opportunities. We love students that love to do the 3 and 5 session co-ops, and that can also be very beneficial to the student. So for example, if you're doing a 3 session co-op, maybe one of those sessions you're going to be based in a technical center environment. Maybe one of the sessions you're going to get to experience the plant type of environment. Being part of a multiple session co-op oftentimes means that you get to kind of try out working in different work areas, which again can just really help you figure out what you like, what you don't like. So it can just really help you in assessing what your interests are, where you really want to apply your focus, when you get out of school. And we really, we take that into account. Now for ZF particularly, I will say that during a session, we can't have people switching work areas. You will spend a full session in one type of environment, either tech center or plant. But on that next session, oftentimes we'll have students request, hey, can I go over to the plant for the next session? And we highly encourage that. We want students to be able to experience as many different work environments as they can so that they can really figure out what it is that they want. Because at the end of the day, when it comes time to, applying for that full-time position, obviously, you know, we're going to gravitate towards those students that really do have those strong convictions and know what they're really interested in, have the relevant experience that has been able to guide them in the direction that they want to go in. And then they're really able to effectively communicate to us about how their career goals are really in line with our company, our values, our industry that we're in, our open position. So it can go a long way if you are able to commit to a multiple session co-op.
Yeah, and I think it's really valuable for students to take a look at doing some things that they don't necessarily think that they're interested in. And so sometimes in a co-op, you do get put in a place where maybe that's not where your interests lie. Sometimes you might find out, hey, maybe I was wrong about that, and this is what I love to do. Other times it's just good to know, okay, I won't be looking for other jobs like this, but that experience could be valuable later on when you're working with different types of people.
And the last thing I'll say too about multiple session co-ops where that can be really handy is, you know, and again, I can't speak for all companies, but I can speak for ZF. You know, when we bring in a student, you know, that first session, they may, it may be more task oriented, you know, that they would be working with an engineer. That engineer would be their mentor, and that mentor may be assigning them tasks to do in that first session. But, you know, the level of responsibility that's going to be assigned to that co-op student beyond that is kind of just going to depend on that student's skill level, how fast they're acclimating to the work environment. So often we have students that are able to pick up so quickly, or maybe they take a little bit time, but then they're able to get really comfortable in their environment. And then we get to start assigning them project ownership. So they go from, you know, having to receive these tasks, take care of these tasks, and now they're the person delegating the tasks and figuring out what needs to be done to finish this project. So that's also what can be so beneficial, is that when you really do commit to multiple sessions, you're getting you know, more and more levels of responsibility as you go, which again just makes you even more I feel like, you know, qualified, you know, for these entry-level positions, because you really have been able to experience various levels of responsibility in a professional environment.
So I think maybe that is it in terms of questions, and we've almost reached our time limit. So we'll say thank you to everybody who joined today. We'll have actually another session next week where we're going to be talking about how to impress recruiters at career fairs, something I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in. So hope to see you back next week. We'll get advertisements out about meeting length and things like that. So be looking for that.
Great. It was a pleasure, everybody. I may have met some of you previously at career fairs, but if I haven't, thank you so much for your time, and definitely look forward to being back next week.
Okay. You hit stop recording?
Oh, did I hit stop?
No, I don't know.
I just hit, I stopped sharing my screen.
Oh.
I think I don't know if it's still recording or not.
I think so. I think maybe we have to end broadcast maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, Joe, I will go ahead and get that PDF over to you right now, to share with everybody. And then I guess I never got to see how many people were on the call.
Well, I thought there was going to be a lot more. So there was only like, I think 15. So that was a little bit disappointing, but we did advertise pretty well. I thought the College of Engineering even was sending out stuff. So we'll do a little bit more next week about it. But the really good thing is I texted Shelby as we were doing this, and because when you hit the start button, it was recording. And so it said it started recording, so we'll be able to post this up, and a lot of people
Good.
will be able to take a look at it. So
Awesome. Yeah, no, again, I was like, hopefully no technical difficulties. This is my first time, but yeah, hopefully everybody got something out of it. And yeah, I'll definitely get the PDF over to you here shortly to share with everybody too.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joe, for your time. I had a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. We'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.